I'm Vanessa P. Chonko from BSIS 3A. Paired t-test. A paired t-test compares the means of two related groups to determine if there is statistically significant difference between them. It analyzes the difference between paired observation, assuming normality, commonly used in before and after studies. Its help assess the impact of the intervention or treatment on the same subject. Question number 1. What is paired t-test? A paired t-test is a statistical method used to compare the mean of two related groups. It assesses whether the mean difference between paired observation is significantly different from zero. This test is commonly applied in situations where measurements are taken from the same subject under the different condition. Question number 2. When is paired t-test used? The paired t-test is used when researchers want to compare two related samples, such as a measurements taken before and after an intervention. It is applicable when the difference between paired observation are normally distributed. This test is ideal for repeated measures of matched subjects in experimental design. Question number 3. How, how do you use paired t-test? To use To use a paired t-test, first formulate the null and alternative hypotheses collect paired data from the same subjects, calculating the difference between each pair. Compute the mean and standard deviation of this difference. Finally, calculate the statistic and compare it to the critical value to determine significance. Question number 4. What are some applications where you can use paired t-test? Application of the paired t-test include evaluating the effectiveness of a training program by comparing pre and post test scores, assessing changes in the pressure before and after treatment, analyzing customer satisfaction rating before and after service improvement, and measuring weight loss before the after a diet program. Question number 5. Describe a real world scenario where you can use related t-test. In a study assessing the impact of a new teaching method, the dependent variable is a technical method. Traditionally or new nominal, while the dependent variables is test scores before and after. Skill a paired t-test can determine if the new method significantly improves student test score compared to the traditional approach. Thank
Good morning, Ma'am. I am Jalen Marabilanaha from BSIS 3A. Two-sample test. A two-sample test compares the means of unrelated groups to determine if there is a statistical significant difference between them. It assumes normally and equal variance but calculate a statistic which is to compare to critical value from them. So what is two-sample test? A two-sample test statistical method used to compare the means of two independent groups. It assesses whether the observed difference in sample means are significant and enough to infer that the population means difference. When is two-sample test used? The two-sample test is used when researchers want to compare the means of the distinct groups to determine if there is a significant difference between them. How do you use two-sample test? To use two-sample test, first formulate the null and alternative hypothesis. Collect data from two independent groups, ensuring normality and equal variances. Calculates the statistic using two-sample means, standard deviations, and sizes. What are some applications where you can use two-sample test? Applications of the two-sample test include comparing test scores between two classes, evaluating the effectiveness of two different treatment in clinical trials, analyzing customer satisfactions rating between two stores, and assessing different and average sales between two marketing strategies in business researches. Describes a real-world scenarios where you can use two-sample tests. In a study comparing test scores of male and female students, the independence variable is sex or NF nominal, while the dependent variable is grade or average scale. Researchers can use a two-sample test to determine if there is a significant difference in average grades between male and female students. Thank you.
Good morning everyone, I am Irish May Ahunin from BSIS 3A. One sample t-test. A one sample t-test assessed whether a simple mean significantly differs from a known population mean, especially with the small sample sizes and less than 30 and the known population standard deviation. It calculates a t-statistic by comparing the sample mean to the population mean. Factoring in sample size and variability, the t-value is then compared to a critical value to determine significance. Number 1. What is one sample t-test? A one sample t-test is a statistical method used to determine if the mean of a single sample significantly differs from a known or hypothesized population mean. It is particularly useful when the sample size is small, typically less than 30, and the population standard deviation is unknown. Number 2. What is one sample t-test used? The one sample t-test used where the researchers want to compare the mean of a sample to known population mean. It is applicable in situations where the sample size is small, the population standard deviation is unknown, and the data is approximately normally distributed. Number 3. How do you use one sample t-test? To use one sample t-test, first calculate the sample mean and the standard deviation, then compute the t-statistic by comparing the sample mean to the population mean, divided by the standard error of the mean. Finally, compare the t-statistic to the critical value from the t-distribution to assess significance. Number 4. What are some applications where you can use one sample t-test? Application of the one sample t-test include comparing average test score to benchmark, evaluating the effectiveness of a few treatment and clinical trials, and assessing customer satisfactions ratings against the target value. It is widely used in education, healthcare, and market research. Number 5. Describe a real-world scenarios where you can use one sample t-test. In the study evaluating a new training program, the dependent variable is training type, standard, experimental, nominal, and the dependent variables in employee performance score average scale. A one sample t-test can determine if the average performance score of employee is the experiment group differs significantly from the standard training group.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, ma'am. I am Catherine Ogumalawi, BSI Austria. The t-test I choose is correlation and regression test. Correlation tests measure the strength and direction of the relationships between two variables. Regression tests go further, pretending the value of one variable based on the other using a line equation. In simple terms, correlation tells you if two things are related, example, height and weight. Regression tells you how they are related and lets you predict one from the another. So, what is correlation and regression test? Correlation measures the strength and direction of the relationships between two variables, while regression predicts the value of dependent variable based on the independent variable. When is correlation regression used? Correlation is used to identify relationships between variables. Regression is applied when predicting outcomes and understanding cost and effect relationships. How do you use correlation and regression test? Use statistical software or formulas for correlation. Calculate a coefficient like persons. For regressions, fit a line to model the relationships, determining coefficients and significance. Application of correlation and regression test: analyzing marketing impact on sales, evaluating medical treatment outcomes, predicting economic trends like DGP. Real-world scenario example: independent variable, age group, original 18 to 24, 25 to 34, and etc. Dependent variable, monthly spending on clothes. Scales, amounts in dollars. Use regression to predict spending based on age, aiding targeted and marketing.